Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hello and a very good morning to each and every one of you who's tuned into Pakistan TV and are watching world this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, I happen to be Shahzad Khan, and with me I'm really lucky. I've been joined by my wonderful colleague who happens to be Miss Eesha, Rehan. For each and every one of you who's out there, we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. It's a fine Wednesday morning over here in Islamabad. But let's, I think, first things first. Hello, Eesha. Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam, Shahzad. I feel absolutely great today. You know, the weather is actually becoming more and more pleasant as we keep diving into the month of October. However, the start of October was quite chilly. I remember the first 2 days when it rained. I was actually engulfed in like 2 to 3 blankets because I was shivering all day and all night. And we are getting reports that the weather is going to get colder and colder. And it's going to be a very cold winter.
And we will certainly speak about it. But other than that, I think it's very confusing these days whether to turn on the fan, whether to turn off the fan, whether to open the window, whether not to open the window, whether to take the blanket, whether not to take the blanket. So ladies and gentlemen, for each and every one of you who's out there, please just make sure that you dress up according to the weather so that, you know, there are not unforeseen health issues with people who are out there. But while we are at it, I think let's get started with what stories are we going to build up on as well. Alhamdulillah, we have seen how Pakistan has been at a diplomatic ascent. But today, we are going to get started with a great news. Now, imagine that the first highlight that I would want to share with all of our audiences out there is that, you know, that at the economic front, there's a good news for Pakistan, and that is that IMF and Pakistan have actually reached a staff level agreement, which certainly is a great news for people of Pakistan. And it's because of the fact that it actually indicates that there's macro stability, not just that, acknowledging the government's strong reform efforts and resilience with improved fiscal performance, a current account surplus for the first time in 2 decades, and a strong focus on social protection, climate resilience. This marks a positive step for economic stability and sustainability. We will be speaking about it in the first part of the show.
All right, so that sounds so exciting. So the highlight that I have is about a very pertinent issue, and that is, since the world is slowly moving on from the headlines of war from Gaza, there is one group that is facing the harrowing aftermath of this devastating war, and that is Gaza's children. Nearly after 2 years of conflict, more than 64,000 Palestinians have been killed, and 20,000 of these are children. According to the Save the Children organization, that's one child every hour since October 2023. It's hard to even grasp the scale that the children are living through: the bombardment, the hunger, the unimaginable trauma. Nearly 97% of schools have been damaged, 94% of hospitals have been hit, and there are 60 children who have died of hunger and famine since last July. A large number of children have actually lost limbs. A large number of children have been injured. We are going to be talking about this integral issue as well.
Exactly, not just that, where Eesha just at the beginning did mention that how it's going to be colder this winter. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be speaking about it, the effects of climate change on Pakistan and Pakistanis, because it is being said that it might be the coldest ever winter recorded in Pakistan. So people of Pakistan, I don't know whether it's a great story or not, but winter, whenever it comes, it's a little harsh on me, at least. I'm going to speak about myself over here. But why is it going to be the coldest winter is something that we will be talking about, clubbing it with sports. How Pakistan is doing wonderfully well in the first test against South Africa, and looks like as if Pakistan is going to win the first test match. South Africa does not move on to decide that we are going to draw this test match. Well, whether, you know, obviously that option is open for them, but we will certainly speak about, you know, how Pakistani athletes are doing wonderfully well on all the other fronts of sports. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back with all of these highlights getting discussed in details. It's a great day to be alive. Alhamdulillah, shukr, alhamdulillah. Heart full of gratitude is something which will give you what you want in life. We're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We will get started with how, you know, there's a staff level agreement in between IMF and Pakistan. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Good morning. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. For each and every one of you just tuned in, ladies and gentlemen, we just actually gave out a preamble of what we will be talking about, where the first segment is where how Pakistan is actually doing wonderfully well at the economic front. And to speak about it, we're very lucky that we've been joined by Dr. Ali Salman, happens to be the Executive Director of Prime Institute. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you feeling today?
Shahzad. I'm feeling very well.
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. It's great news for Pakistan. And, so to get started with the, the news which has been circulating now since morning, and that is the staff level agreement in between IMF and Pakistan government. How significant do you think is this new IMF staff level agreement for Pakistan's economy at this point and stage?
Well, since we are in the program, so it is significant for us that we have to follow the program requirements, conditionalities, and the promises and commitments which we have made with the IMF. And so it's great that finally we have arrived at a staff level agreement. It shows that the roadmap with which the government agreed with the IMF last year, the government is on the track of implementation of those commitments. And certainly it also means that more economic stability and more room for us to pursue the agenda of reforms.
And that's exactly what I would want to kind of ask about, since we're talking about a bigger picture now, and we will certainly, step by step dive into the very nitty-gritty of it. So let's speak about the macroeconomic stability first of all, and then let's speak about the confidence returning to Pakistan. Do you see that happening?
Well, if you see a couple of indicators, I think macroeconomic stability was on the right track. So for instance, look at the exchange rate. For last 1.5 years to 2 years, our exchange rate has been very stable. The stability of exchange rate means that the investors who are making business plans in Pakistan, especially foreign investors, can have more confidence on the returns of their investment, and they can value their propositions in a rational manner. Secondly, our inflation has come down significantly, and despite of the challenges which we are facing from the floods, the inflation remains in the range bound, which is also significant and helpful from a monetary policy perspective. And also I think the overall, if you see the economic policy direction, this has remained stable, and broadly we are working towards that direction. So these are good signs for stability.
Exactly, that's wonderful. And while we're talking about it, I myself, what I've witnessed is that whenever there's cash inflow coming in, there's more stability in my life. So with $1.2 billion coming in, let's speak about the exchange rate and the foreign reserves and the impact that it will have. And what is there for all of those investors, so may it be foreign direct investors, or investments, or people from within Pakistan? How do you think the sentiment is going to change? How do you think that it will actually have an impact on the interest rate? How do you think it will have an impact? I know it's a lengthy question, but it will have an impact on the stock markets, with $1.2 billion coming in.
Well, stock market had a dive, yesterday. Yep. So we hope that it will be restored to its normal growth. Pakistan Stock Exchange has been performing very well in last 1 year. So we hope that this will continue its streak. As far as the interest rate is concerned, I think it will not have a direct impact because this is driven by our domestic inflation scenario. And according to the State Bank calculations, there is a risk of higher inflation if they loosens the monetary policy. All right. And that's actually what the IMF also acknowledges. They acknowledge that by tightening the monetary policy or keeping it at the same rate, we are doing the right thing according to their model. Of course, people would disagree with that, but I think this is the right thing to do. Now, you talked about the foreign investors. So that's complicated because foreign investors are not directly going to jump in because just IMF has signed off or given us a letter. They need much more assurances, especially on the business environment. And I do believe that the government is doing a lot, and we can talk about it later. But I think just IMF deal would not, make a revolution on it.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying
and the
that.
Finance Minister Mohammed Aurangzeb has stated that privatization is a key part of this economic roadmap, and we are seeing companies like PIA being privatized. Do you think this is going to boost investor confidence as big companies want to invest and privatize these companies?
Privatization remains an important avenue for investors, both domestic investors and foreign investors. We have seen that the previous attempt to privatize PIA failed badly, and we are very hopeful that this time around this will be successful and we will have better offers from the investors.
All right.
There also talk or almost approval of a bank being privatized, which is the first women bank, I believe. And so even today there was a news that the government has secured internal approval, cabinet level approval. So that means that when such entities are going from the public to the private, certainly there are more investment opportunities. These are entities which have already been doing business for some time. And rather than starting something new, the investors may find it confident if there is a viable proposition as a result of privatization. But I honestly think that there is government has to speed up a lot when it comes to privatization. Okay. It has been saying a lot of things, but the speed with which we should have done the privatization deals is in my opinion, is rather slow.
Exactly, and where you're actually directing is probably the bureaucracy as well, where how they need to speed up their things, in terms of privatization as well. I've had a chance of being in conversation with a former chairman of Small and Medium Enterprises Bank as well, which was supposed to be privatized, I think, almost 3 or 4 years ago, but it's still impending. But speaking of it, now let's move on towards our fiscal policy. First things first, obviously, we did witness after 2 decades almost that there was a current account surplus. Now, imagine if you are to speak about the IMF program, how do you think that, the commitment of 1.6% primary surplus in the current budget really needs to be maintained? Do you think that it's quite a lot of optimism? Do you think it's pretty much doable for Pakistan?
I see some risks there of maintaining the fiscal surplus as committed, and there are mainly 2 reasons for it. One reason is if you look at the situation with the floods, although I believe that that the floods have luckily been not that detrimental to Pakistan's economy as initially thought. True. So that's certainly a relief. But it is going to affect the agriculture output. It is going to affect the inputs for the industry, cotton, etc. The revenue coming or tax coming from these activities will be reduced to some degree. Secondly, when we talk about the tax collection, when we talk about fiscal surplus or primary surplus, has to do with also the tax collection targets. So we see that on the first quarter, IFBR has again missed the target by about 200 billion rupees. So last year they also missed the target. This year also, although the target was revised, but this year again they missed the target. So those targets have to be on the track if you want to maintain the target of achieving the primary surplus. True. Otherwise, there will be risk of losing that.
All right, and we have been getting reports of how Pakistan is on an economic ascent. And speaking about this, the finance minister also met leaders from the IMF, the World Bank, and the US Treasury, and they have all reaffirmed their support for Pakistan's reform drive that we have been experiencing. So, do you sense a global confidence in Pakistan's economy at this point?
I think globally speaking, in terms of geopolitics, in terms of foreign policy, in terms of our presence in the region and beyond, in Middle East, Pakistan's role has been widely appreciated, and this is certainly a moment of ascent for Pakistan's external policy, foreign policy, and we should build on it. Whether we like it or not, our economic growth in the past has been linked with the geopolitics or our role in geopolitical context. So if the past is any guide, then we should leverage upon this newfound confidence on Pakistan's businesses or Pakistan business environment, I would say. That's just an opening, you see. And what is more important, I think, in the previous decades, we have relied mostly on the government flows. When we, for instance, CPAC. This time we must focus on the private sector flows, international markets. Because once the international markets coming in, let's say international firms coming in, that really is the sign of confidence in Pakistan's private sector. Because government to government deal is good, but I don't think so that is going to give a big boost to the large private sector we have.
And this is exactly where the Honorable Prime Minister did speak about, how the private entities really need to play their role in the development of the country. I'm just going to circle back the tax reforms and how unfortunately we've been missing out on that as well. Do you think that the tax policy and compliance measures are being prioritized as of now? Because I do see it. Now imagine that the salary that I get paid, I think almost 21 to 25% of tax is being deducted. Every restaurant that I go to, there's tax that I have to pay to. Even if I am going to go buy some groceries, there's quite a lot of tax that I'm paying. So when we say that we're not, as Pakistanis, we're not complying to the tax policies, what do we actually mean by that? Because almost everything that I'm buying these days, there's tax added to that.
I totally agree with you. Actually, I think in terms of compliance, there is a lot of improvement. And FBR itself acknowledged in the this year budget that they expect a lot of revenue gain from better compliance.
Okay.
Which means that those who are already in the sort of the tax target or tax potential, they are going to be squeezed more. But it also means one good thing, and that is already happening. Some of the industries have been identified which were paying less their tax potential.
Okay.
And through technology, I think FBR has been able to actually diagnose the problem and improve the tax collection. For instance, sugar industry. It has been reported in the media and public that the tax collection from the sugar mills have improved significantly, remaining at the same production level. So it means that there were some gaps which need to be fulfilled from the level of compliance. So salaries, of course, salary taxpayers have been there. But yeah, definitely.
And we shouldn't even, I shouldn't even be saying that as well. But there's no getting away.
Allow me to do a slight correction. Commonly, we say that taxpayers are the biggest tax contributors. Usually it is reported. It's not.
Oh.
Because the total collection from the taxpayers in terms of the income tax is about 500 to 600 billion rupees.
That's it.
Right. And the total tax collection, even if you just take the direct taxation, is between 6 to 7 trillion rupees.
Okay.
So it means there are other sources of taxation which is being contributed, corporate tax for instance, which is being contributed, and I think it's not correct, although the tax rate is very high.
All right, yeah.
Tax rate is very high, but the relative portion in the tax collection is not that high as commonly argued.
Exactly, and while we are highlighting all of these issues and pinpointing how things really need to be kind of well understood, I think I'm going to give it away, for people who are out there, and this is a social message for everybody, that we really need to be taxpayers, whether we are businessmen, entrepreneurs, we're investing somewhere, whether we're buying lands. I mean, please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, because that's for the prosperity of the country. Very quickly, now there was this one sentiment when we, actually kind of got the successful IMF plan, and that was that the conditions of the International Monetary Fund for Pakistan are really tough, and that things are going to get difficult. Now, as a common man's perception, or my perception, what I feel is that plan has actually worked out really wonderfully well for Pakistan, and we do see macroeconomic stability within the country. Do you think that those tough conditions have actually made it possible for Pakistan's government to see this stability within rupee, exchange rate, interest rates, or do you think that the conditions were really tough?
Well, on all these benchmarks, I think we have done well. When it comes to the government own financial strategy, whether in terms of interest rate, in terms of, let's say, the fiscal policy direction, we have done pretty well.
Okay.
Now, the thing which we need to see is how the private sector has responded to the stability. Right? And the measures for it, for instance, do we see an improvement in the large-scale manufacturing or not? Unfortunately, we don't have a good news on that front yet. There is a significant, or I would say gradual decline, unfortunately, on that. On the other hand, there are some sectors which are reporting better perception. For instance, a survey by Overseas Chamber of Commerce, which represents the multinationals in Pakistan, suggests that they are feeling more confident in government policies than before.
Exactly.
So it's a positive sign, but to translate the stability into growth is a big question. And I think, look, ultimately we have to focus growth. We can't be, because we are a large population, we need to create millions of jobs every year. And so we can't forever remain in the program-like conditions.
And
this is like a temporary phenomenon.
True.
If we keep coming back to the program, as unfortunately we have been coming back in last 30, 40 years, Pakistan has become one of the, the most I would say, countries which has gone back to IMF again and again. So that's not good, and we should try to really come out of the program and adopt our agenda for growth.
And it certainly does look like as if we will be out of the program as well, you know, with all sorts of trades happening with United States of America. Not just that, you know, on the other hand, we do know for a fact, but first I think Dr. Ali Salman Sahab, thank you so much for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with you. And you know, today happens to be one of those days where whatever questions I wanted to ask and the answers I wanted to listen to, I actually got those answers. So I think it was great. We were on this, our energies were aligned, so I think it was great. Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, is at a great economic front as of now as well, doing wonderfully well. And certainly, as Dr. Saab has mentioned, that, you know, we really need to come out of the plan, and for that, certainly Pakistan, you know, the rightful trade which needs to take place in between other countries, and how trilateral trades that we have been talking about, bilateral trades that we have been talking about really needs to progress. But while we speak about all of this, I think what I really need to talk about is, and this is a question which I actually posed, Eesha, to one of our guests as well, that now, you know, we're sending minerals to United States of America, and how the, you know, our ironclad partner China really needs to be within that confidence as well. So I think you have to share something about that, right?
Exactly, Shahzad. Speaking about this, there's another story that is unfolding, and that is directly related to our ironclad brothership with China. Foreign investment and strategic alliances have been going about how Pakistan has kept its all-weather friend China informed about its new cooperation with the United States in the mining sector. It follows a $500 million investment deal with the U.S. Strategic Metals to develop mineral processing facilities in Pakistan, a move that many could say will unlock the country's potential in rare earth elements like copper and Nathurium.
Exactly, and there's a high-level mutual strategic trust and close communication in between U.S., Pakistan, and China. Well, that's good news, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we're actually heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. I mean, if you have to go somewhere, just get a cup of coffee, sip on that, and enjoy world this morning after a break. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. And where, you know, on the second highlight, Madam Eesha did mention how we will be talking about or building up on the Gaza ceasefire. What the latest that has come in, ladies and gentlemen, is very unfortunate to see that Gaza ceasefire violations have taken place already. Now, imagine that Israel has actually imposed new restrictions on aid entering into the besieged Gaza Strip and will not open the Rafah crossing as planned, while Israeli forces killed at least 9 people in the Palestinian territory as the Israel-Hamas ceasefire came under growing strain. Israel notified the United Nations that it will only allow 308 trucks, half of the number it originally agreed to, daily into the Gaza Strip from today. Well, that's a serious ceasefire violation where 9 unfortunate people have actually been killed. And imagine that, you know, that there's a famine, the children, ladies and gentlemen, with amputated arms, there's no medicines for them. And this ceasefire violation needs to be dealt with seriously by all of those mediating forces who've actually been at the front. Now, not just that, imagine that far-right Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has stormed the Al-Aqsa mosque compound in occupied East Jerusalem for the second time in a week. Jerusalem's Islamic Endowments Directorate and witness report the extremist minister entered the flashpoint site under heavy Israeli police protection. Last week, Ben-Gvir made a similar incursion at the start of the Jewish Sukkot holiday, a move that drew widespread Palestinian condemnations.
All right, and you know, as Shahzad highlighted how even Israel is violating ceasefires, it is not shocking to us because they have been committing such atrocities. And speaking about their atrocities, there is one group that is living through this aftermath of war, the famine, the devastation, the missing limbs, the hunger, and that is the children of Gaza. Around 20,000 children have been killed, more than 21,000 have lost their limbs, around 42 children have been injured, and 60 have died because of famine. To speak more about how children have been witnessing such devastating and mounting trauma. We have someone who has been at the forefront witnessing firsthand how children are coping with this hunger and loss, and she happens to be joining us from all the way from Gaza. She happens to be YOUSRA Abu Sharik, who is a Gaza program coordinator for INARA. Thank you so much for joining us, YOUSRA.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, YOUSRA, can you please let us know what is happening in Gaza right now? We have heard reports that around 20,000 children have been killed and more than 42,000 have been injured. How are they sustaining this loss through the aftermath of this war?
Yes, thank you so much. To be honest, the situation on the ground here in Gaza Strip is devastating, and like having the ceasefire into effect is something very good and something that we were waiting for 2 years now. And people here in the ground are so hopeful for this, but also a very complex chapter is starting, and there are too much work to do, especially with children, as you've said. At least 42,000 life-altering injuries have happened here in Gaza for those children who don't have any access to healthcare services, as the healthcare system has been severely damaged and collapsed during this conflict. On top of that, we at INARA, we are working closely with children, and we could witness how deep the trauma and complex inside them. For example, we celebrated with them on the day of ceasefire announcement to throw away the things that they don't like or they hate about the war. And some of them, imagine, just they throw away eating canned food and and beans. Some of them threw away the loss of their beloved one. They don't want to lose more of their families and beloved one. Also, I was walking by a group of children 2 days ago in Khan Younis, where the IDF withdrew recently after 5 months of ground operation. And the group
Exactly, Yusra, at this point of time, I would want to kind of add on over here where how there's been a ceasefire violation as well, you know, where we speak about the children and the women of the Gaza Strip as well. Imagine that Israel has imposed new restrictions on aid entering the besieged Gaza Strip and will not open the Rafah crossing as planned, and while Israeli forces killed at least 9 people in the Palestinian territory as the Israel-Hamas ceasefire came under growing strain. How do you think it will have an impact on the ceasefire that we have been talking about for the past couple of days as well, where the Israeli atrocities continue to hurt and damage and kill people of the of Gaza?
Yes, actually, it's expected, and that's why the people here in Gaza Strip are not so happy, but they have this hope for this to be permanent, because several times we have been failed. And if you remember, like in March 2025, they collapsed the ceasefire out of nowhere. So yes, this worry from collapsing the ceasefire is inside every one in the Gaza Strip. And it's not only about like the war or a collapsing of the ceasefire, but also war remnant. I was saying that I was walking by a group of boys who were playing with the bullets, the cases of which are considered as war remnant. And yesterday also children were killed due to the unexplosive rocket that has been exploded yesterday, and some of them killed. And they were so scary because they thought that peace is eventually here in Gaza, but unfortunately, no. It's not about the war itself. It's about what after the war, what after, like dealing with the war remnant, what after the impact of hunger and the deliberate starvation that people here in Gaza went through for at least 6 months. The impact is still obvious on the children's bodies and mental health as well. What about their normalcy, their academic life? Now we are about to lose the third year of academic life for children and for high schools as well, and also universities. So what those children, how they will hold up during the coming future, while they are still paying the price of the continuing violence or bombardment or fear, at least.
All
Exactly.
right, Yusra. And Yusra, what we are seeing right now is that Gaza is facing a famine by design, designed by Israel. Food prices have increased up to 700%, and only 1% of households are food secure. Is enough being done on the humanitarian scale to address this atrocious issue? We have seen 60 kids died because of hunger.
Yeah, actually, the hunger and as you said, the design starvation was the hardest part of this war. For at least 6 months, we've been through not only hunger or lack or food insecurity or starvation, but also us as a humanitarian organizations, we were so challenged to do the work we supposed to do. We were not allowed to enter aids into Gaza Strip, and if so, these aids are were being looted. Also, they used GHF company, which is located in very dangerous and far away locations from people who are in dire need for food at that time. I During the peak of the starvation and the famine, I met a boy who wished for his 15th birthday to have just wheat flour bread, just only bread, because for at least 2 3 months he didn't have bread. The only thing that they had at that time is lentils. And
Exactly, and Yusra, certainly, because imagine that, these days people have been knocking on the doors just to ask for a piece of bread, and that's how the situation is very dire, and there needs to be all sorts of humanitarian activities which needs to take place. Now, imagine you as the Gaza program coordinator for INARA Gaza, Palestine. Now, imagine, let's speak about, what sort of roadmap do we have for a rehabilitation for all of those children, women, for children with amputated limbs, not just that, schools, hospitals, doctors. What roadmap do you think that the people of Gaza are working on, or the other mediators who've actually contributed towards ceasefire, so that there's normalcy and that the children can go back to schools and have their livelihood back to themselves?
I believe that everyone at the international level and here locally and organizations as well should work together to ensure that those children have access to their health medications and treatment, to have them evacuated from Gaza, because as I said, the health system is not enabled to treat with these cases. So to support them to be evacuated, for all countries to receive them and treat them until they are healed completely and recovered. And also, it's very important to support the healthcare system here in Gaza to deal with cases that are in need for long-term treatment. So also, and on the other hand, the healthcare workers are so drained here in Gaza. So we are in need for more and more medical missions to come to Gaza, not only to support the doctors and the healthcare workers, but also to give them this space to have a rest or to heal or to restore themselves after 2 years. They were working day and night during the mass casualties and during the harsh conditions.
All right, and Yusra, about this issue, right, what's really saddening my heart and everyone's else's heart is that around 17,000 children are unaccompanied and separated from their parents. This means that they're witnessing this soul-shaking horror show on their own, facing these atrocity and trauma on their own. Do we see any psychological programs or rehabilitation programs for them to find their families?
Yes, actually, the organizations under protection domain and protection cluster, and in the coordination with UNICEF and other organizations that are working to accompany these children with those families or to support the mental health for those children is ongoing, and we do our best to support them dealing with their trauma and to support those children overcome what they have endured during the very harsh conditions and violence during the bombardment and the loss.
Exactly, and Yusra, we certainly hope and pray for the people of Gaza, for the children, for the mothers, for the parents, and for the men of Gaza as well, that that they return back to normalcy. Thank you so much for your time, and we hope and pray that everything's going to be better and that Allah blesses you with a lot of prosperity in the region as well, with the ceasefire in place, and that there are no more violations in days to come, and that all of those humanitarian agencies and NGOs are actually going to make sure that they're going to provide with all sorts of medicines, maybe education, psychological support, and that we see peace in the region as well. Thank you so much for your time, Yusra. Well, in addition, where we have actually spoken about it, ladies and gentlemen, where children really needs to be in the sporting fields and to play and to see that, that they're having a normal childhood behavior patterns or time, or to go and play with their friends. It's unfortunate to see that. But now, I think let's move on towards how Pakistan is actually doing in the field of cricket. It's hard to kind of transition from such a very harsh topic to coming back to Pakistan doing at the sports front. But, kind of doing justice with our jobs over here, where South Africa now are 51 for 2 at stumps on the third day, while chasing a target of 277 runs against Pakistan in the first test in Lahore. The Porties now need 226 more runs to win, while Pakistan require 8 wickets for victory. Ryan Rickleton remained not out on 29 along with Tony D'Souza on 16 when play ended for the day. Aidan Markram scored 3, while Vian Mulder was dismissed without scoring earlier. Pakistan were bowled out for 167 in their second innings thereafter, taking a first innings lead of 109 runs. South Africa is at 71 for the loss of 4 wickets, and this is the first session today, and South Africa need 206 runs.
All right, and then on this topic, let's speak about another thing that we need to recognize internationally, and that is today we are observing the International Day of Rural Women. We celebrate the invaluable contributions of rural women in our society. They are the backbone of our communities and working tirelessly in fields of agriculture and mining, and the resilience and dedication that they give to their homes needs to be viewed and studied, and I think we need to give back to them. We need to celebrate and maybe give them a day of rest.
Yeah, we are celebrating women. I mean, we celebrate you each and every day, alhamdulillah, women in our homes as well, and the rural women, because ladies and gentlemen, I think that the core issue over here is that what happens is that for the amount of work that they do in the rural areas and the rural setups, it actually goes unaccounted for as well, and it's not being paid. So today is the day that we celebrate our rural women. But while we are celebrating our rural women, imagine that they can be in a bit of challenge, and it's because of the fact that we have seen massive floodings in Pakistan. So obviously the crop outcome might not be, or the Kharif crop outcome might not be as we might expect, and it might be challenging for the people of rural areas, people of urban areas. But imagine on top of that, it's going to be the coldest winter Pakistanis might have experienced. And to speak about it, we're very lucky that we've been joined by one of my favorite environmentalists, happens to be Dr. EJAZ. Ahmed, hello sir, assalamu alaikum, good morning, how are you feeling today?
Thank you very much. It was wonderful new setting, and I'm glad to be again.
Exactly, sir, and we are glad to be part of this very new setup as well, where we're opening up windows, so that the world knows what Pakistan is all about, alhamdulillah. Yeah. And but for now, what the people are going to get to know is that it's going to be the coldest winters in Pakistan. Is that true?
Well, that's what is being actually said by various experts who are working in this area. International Weather Organization also identified this that this coming winter will be one of the very coldest winter, and especially after going through the whole this I would again say super flood that actually we faced for last few months, and then harsh winter is expected. I think this is becoming more and more it's becoming a new normal now. And ultimately,
exactly.
But we don't want to normalize this, right? Because since the flooding, there has been reports that around 229,000 houses have been destroyed.
Exactly.
How are they going to face this winter? Are we going to potentially face a humanitarian crisis?
Well, ultimately, if we, if we provide support, and if we are able to rehabilitate and all those who have been displaced, are if they are settled, I think it will take time. And this settlement, we faced a lot of problem in 2022 for the settlement of these people who were who became homeless during the flood of 2022.
And almost $40 billion of losses and displacements and whatnot.
That's exactly, I think, almost going to be the same amount this year also, that it will be close to 35-40 million.
Exactly, but sir, since you're an environmentalist, I'm going to circle back to my conversation about climate change and the coldest weather. Now imagine that there's always been a debacle in between people which come from a school of thought that, that whether it's climate change or global warming or whatnot, and then there's another school of thought of La Nina, and there's another phenomena about that. Now, what the agencies actually speak about is the La Nina effect, which might be taking up, and which is why we might be experiencing the coldest winter. Can you explain it to our audiences what we are trying to establish over here?
Well, I think it is a matter which is related to climate change, which is, we are facing global warming, though, as you mentioned, one of our new friend, Trump, does not agree with that. And the conventions, the international obligations that has been forced by the international community is not being accepted by many of them. They want to escape from it, but the reality is that we have been suffering. Like Pakistan, 2010, 2021, 2022, 2025, massive floods. And then in addition to that, the phenomena of GLOF, the smog issue, the other, related issues. And it is, for us, the whole year, there is something going on related to climate change, related to environment. So I think since we are facing it, so we know that this is not some gimmick, it is reality. And unless and until we realize that it is a reality, we are not going to do anything about it. I think the realization should be very strong, at least in Pakistan, and that is there. But then there are various quarters, like the Secretary General was very much convinced, and he visited Pakistan in 2022, and he was of the view that this is something which is, part of the climate change phenomena. So
we do, but sir, we do experience that, we do understand that. Our Honorable Prime Minister has spoken about it, there have been pledges for the flood as well, but that's...
Only pledges.
Obviously only pledges, because unfortunately, I think I'm going to be honest over here, where we have been unable to kind of tap onto the climate fund ourselves.
Partially, yes.
Partially, yes. Thank you so much for agreeing to that. At least this shows that my research is spot on. But now, what we really need to kind of talk about is that imagine that within the summers we have experiences, of GLOF, cloudbursts and whatnot, and the glaciers melting. Now, imagine that there's one bit that we speak about glaciers melting, then there's another bit where we say that it's going to be the coldest winter. How? That's something...
Such extremism.
Which is just out of context for me to kind of understand. Ye kaise ho raha?
No, I think this is something which ultimately is related to climate change.
Obviously.
It is, of course, the unfortunate thing is, even during this flood, the temperature, sea temperature, Arabian Sea's temperature increased 0.7 to 0.8 degrees centigrade, which resulted in massive flash floods, and also in some areas cloud burst phenomena, which was not much before, but then this temperature, rise in temperature ultimately has impact on the overall the environment of Pakistan, and the wind movement, it takes all the warm air up towards the mountain areas, and ultimately, this whole climate scenario changes, and that is one of the fact. And then I actually wanted to say, when you were talking about GLOF and other, there is a smog phenomena which is coming.
Yes,
and it's already there.
We were about to touch on.
So it is, and it is expanding with the passage of time.
Quality index in Lahore is already at 300.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is something, and then we have gone through massive floods. Ultimately, there is a lack of storage, whatever the reason is. We may, I hope it's not the reality, end up in partial drought also. That is some of the predictions, because as you mentioned, Kharif crop will suffer, but then I'm worried about Rabi crop.
And in addition to this, just very quickly before wrapping it up, certainly there could be food insecurity as well, and that's something that we really need to be kind of viable about. Very quickly, I do know that we're very short on time, for one last question, and that is that how do you think that Pakistanis really need to kind of do well within their own strengths?
I think we should start thinking inward and see this is our problem, and we are the one who are going to face it and who are going to solve it.
Exactly.
If we realize that, then ultimately we'll come up with solutions. Otherwise, we'll be looking outwards, and then nothing will happen.
Oh,
Unfortunately.
thank you so much. And with that, we're going to wrap this up. For everyone preparing for the winter, make sure to, take out all your blankets, make sure that you have enough food, make sure to give and distribute enough food and blankets to the people around you, because we together as a united Pakistan will be resilient and strong. With this, we are signing out. Catch you tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Yeah, well, this morning, Allah Hafiz. Have a good day.